We have Marwan Bishara, who's Al Jazeera's senior political analyst, joining us from Doha. So, Marwan, what's your reading into the summit and what was achieved?
You know, rhetorically speaking, they did sing from the same sheet. They basically had the same tune. And I think, generally speaking, they said the right things, in as far as one could say everyone wished Syria would be inclusive and more democratic and would have a peaceful transition, and that they would help the Syrian people achieve that and maintain the sovereignty and stability of Syria. Of course, one does not expect any meeting anywhere to say anything but this. So I think this was kind of understood that they were going to say exactly these things. The question is, do they mean it? And will they do something about it together, in tandem? Or will they once again, as they did in other countries such as Libya, Yemen, and elsewhere, end up singing from different sheets and doing the opposite things, as they've already actually been doing in Syria itself? One worry that the agenda of different Arab and Western powers are not the same. When they say or talk about, for example, fighting terrorism in Syria, some are talking about ISIS, others are talking about the PKK, and yet another are talking about the militias in the south, and some are talking about the national army. So, you know, it's hard to say.
So how complicated does that make things?
Most of these countries have just embraced. It really complicates things. And, you know, once you understand that what they're really looking for is their own interest in Syria, and they want to make sure that they have a say in what's going on in Syria. And yes, probably a lot of them, not all of them, a lot of them do want a stable Syria. That doesn't mean they want what's good for the Syrian people, but they do want to contain the situation in Syria. They want a stable Syria. Why do I say it's not necessarily that they care for the Syrian people? Because we know just from the past few months or a couple of years that they embraced President Assad, even though they knew of his crimes. They knew that does not serve, the interests of the Syrian people, as it were. But only, in the past 12 days, they decided to change their tune. Will they really walk their talk? Remains to be seen.
Marwan, all these countries that are there gathering in Jordan, as you're saying, they all have their own interest in Syria, but the people who are supposed to be leading Syria are not there. And there are numerous UN Security Council resolutions calling for a Syrian-led political process. What do you make of that?
Well, certainly one should not expect that Hayat Tahrir al-Sham is going to be leading Syria in the intermediate run or in the long run in Syria. They're supposed to be, transitional. They actually promised as much. They said that they will prepare for free and democratic elections and that they will start working with local communities and councils in order to work on a new constitution. Again, theoretically, rhetorically, that's what we hear from Syria. Now, for the time being, all UN members that are interested, they say they don't have to recognize Hayat Tahrir al-Sham in order to open contacts with it. That's include the United States and European Union and so on and so forth. Even the Russians that are indispensable to vote or not to veto a UN Security Council opening the way for taking out Hayat Tahrir al-Sham from the list of terrorist organization. All of that's going to be needed moving forward, because for the time being, even the UN Security Council, United Nations that is, and most of the world powers consider Hayat Tahrir al-Sham a terrorist organization. So there's a long way for that recognition to happen and for real contacts and real coordination to take place. This is going to be a difficult way forward.
Even though Antony Blinken himself said that there was some sort of contact between them and Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, how likely is it, do you think, going forward, that the U.S. actually removes the organization from its terrorist list?
I think it's very possible. They probably are working on the conditions for that. The same thing for the British. My understanding is that London will probably normalize relations and recognize Hayat Tahrir al-Sham before Washington. Usually historically speaking, London was always a bit of a testing ground for Washington. But I think, and I will go on the record to say that the Brits have already for a while now been in contact with Hayat Tahrir al-Sham. They've spoken to them. They understand what they're up to. They know, what they mean to do in Syria and so on and so forth. So I don't think Britain, the United States, and I would argue a lot of other countries, including Turkey and the likes, have been already in contact directly or indirectly, and they are very familiar with Hayat Tahrir al-Sham. So I think this is going to be more or less like a normalization process based on a number of conditions that any one of those will expect from Syria and the transitional authority. And again, that's why, while a lot of people are expressing optimism, I tell you, it's going to be quite hard to stabilize Syria and move it on path to more prosperity, democracy, and stability, as it were.
Marwan, just a final thought from you, if I may, and very briefly. Did you hear enough when it came to the Israeli violations of Syrian sovereignty? I mean, we heard the usual words of condemnation from the ministers attending the Aqaba summit, but did they go far enough?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. And I think probably that's why Blinken ended up not showing up, because he was going to hear that the Arabs condemned this, but he didn't even want to hear the condemnations. But that's the only thing the Arabs can do at this point in time, is condemn. Would any one of them sever relations with Israel? No. Would any one of them make an ultimatum against Israel? Absolutely not. So Israel knows it can bomb the hell out of Syria because it can get away with it.
Okay, Marwan Bishara, Al Jazeera senior political analyst, speaking to us from Doha. Thank you so much.
Make sure to subscribe to our channel to get the latest news from Al Jazeera.